So there's a lot of people that believe that if a man is truly into you, then there's nothing that can stop him from pursuing you. And unfortunately, that isn't necessarily correct. All right. In life, there's a lot of different factors that can play into a man genuinely wanting to be with you, generally viewing you as someone he can share his life with and marry, and yet at the moment is unwilling to pursue and try to make anything happen. Now, I know that can be very frustrating for those who are going through it or have gone through it, right? And it can create a lot of confusion. But I want to help shed some light on the issue and hopefully bring more understanding. Just in case if you haven't gone through it, you may eventually cross that line. You may eventually get to that point of dealing with someone who's dealing with some of these things I'm about to mention. So let's jump right to it. One of the first reasons why a man can be interested in you but not pursue you is because he does not feel financially ready yet. All right. So on the internet, you hear a lot of women talk about they want a man who makes six figures, right? And I know there's many of you watching this who would say that's not you. You're not focused on that. I mean, not that you don't want him to be stable, but you're more flexible than that. That's not your focus. Your focus is on a man who's going to love you, treat you right, all these things. But the reality is that a lot of men hear the desire for finances or how many women prioritize it, as well as there's something innate in a man that when he is genuinely into a woman, he wants to be able to provide. And financially is definitely one of those ways. So I've seen a lot of situations where the standard the man puts on himself for where he needs to be financially is higher than what that woman would make it. Or what happens is, even though maybe ideally that's what she wanted, when she meets the man that she falls for, she's like willing to be to move past that for the sake of being able to be together right now and work towards these things. And it can become very frustrating when you're that woman and he's like, nah, I need to wait, I need more time. You're like, why can't he just, just why can't we just be together and we can work on that later? But you have to understand, for a lot of men, there's various factors to why it can weigh so heavy on them, right? One could be that a lot of men don't feel like they're going to be respected without being able to provide a certain level of financial stability. Um, they've seen other men get talked down to. They've seen other men get left because maybe the financial improvement didn't come fast enough. And unfortunately, even if you're working towards doing better financially, there's not necessarily a very strict timeline. Like, he doesn't know when it's going to happen for him. He knows what he's working towards. It could be a year. He could give a vague, I think maybe in a year I should be good, but what happens if that year passes and he's still not good? And it can become very stressful to not just the relationship, but to him himself, right? So that causes a lot of men to be weary of it. Also, when again he has genuine feelings, there may be a certain standard of living that he wants for himself. And to not have that, it just makes things very uncomfortable. So, like, I'll use me. Before I even became Stefan Speaks or any of that stuff, I genuinely had a rule that if I'm broke, I'm not dating. I'm not looking for it. I'm not entertaining it. I need to focus on getting my stuff together. And I remember back then, people used to think I'm being too strict, I'm being too harsh, but I'm like, no, because I understand that a relationship can become a distraction, which is another huge factor for some of these men. Everyone's different. I've heard some men feel or express to me that they feel like they perform better when they're in a relationship. I've talked to other men who feel like they get derailed when they're in a relationship, right? And as a woman, you have to also be honest with yourself about how much attention and time will I need from him. So, for example, there was a situation where a woman actually went overseas on a vacation. While she's there, she meets this guy. They hit it off, have this amazing connection, right? And there's a lot to the story, but the bottom line is he told her from the jump, like, listen, this isn't going to work right now because I'm still trying to get my stuff together. He's finishing school. He still has to get a good job, all these things. But she felt so deeply for him that she was just like, no, that doesn't matter. Boom, boom, boom. She even like moved over there for a while and stayed with him. While she was staying with him, they got into a lot of arguments and fights because he wasn't spending enough time with her. But it wasn't big. It wasn't like he was out there in the streets playing games. He had to go study. He had to worry about this. He was also work. Like he just did not have much available time to give her because there was so much on his plate for him trying to get to that next level in life. And it's almost like she lost sight of the fact of, this is why he said he can't be in a relationship right now. So it ended up kind of coming to a head and they ended up breaking up and she was disappointed, but she kind of held on to this frustration towards him. Like, why isn't he willing to make this work? But you got to understand, for some men, again, there's only so much time and energy that he can give when he's in that period of life that he's trying to get his finances in order. So all that to say, like, you just have to be mindful of it. But this is why a lot of men aren't going to try, because they've tried before and they fell on their face. It did not work out. So as long as he doesn't feel like he's at a place where he can truly pour into you, he may feel that this is not the time to pursue and make anything happen. All right. So another big, and I would even say common reason why a man can be interested in you but not pursue you is because he's dealing with a situation. Now, I use the word situation to encompass various types of relationship dynamics. So we're focused on he's dealing with another woman, okay? Situation could be baby mother. Situation could be wife but separated. Situation can be in a relationship but unhappy, right? There's various levels. We're not going to include happily in a relationship, but we're not going to include, we're not even going to go there. I was going to say happy in a relationship, but now came across you and is interested. We're leaving that out. All right. And I know some of y'all are like, well, how can he be happy and still be interested? That's a whole different discussion. But anyways, we're talking about these very, I guess you could say, complicated scenarios. And it's complicated because he doesn't have both feet in the door. He has 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Okay. Now, depending on what it is, and I'm not saying this is okay, I'm not validating or excusing it, but there's a lot of men who will be hesitant to tell you about their situation. All right. There's a lot of scenarios that I come across where a woman comes to me, she's frustrated because she met this man. Let's say they were talking for the first month. And let's just say in the scenario they didn't have sex, but they've been talking, showing interest. And then somehow the conversation goes away where she ends up asking certain questions and he ends up revealing his situation. And she's upset. Like, why did you not tell me this? Why are you just now telling me? And again, I'm not excusing it. But the response from a lot of guys would be, well, he was afraid to let you know. One, because he was hoping he would have it resolved by then in some cases. Other cases, a lot of men feel like if he would have told you, you wouldn't have even given him an opportunity to get to know you. Again, I'm not saying that's okay. I'm just telling you that's the logic in his head, okay? He knew that would he felt that might shut the door. And he didn't want the door shut, even if he's not fully prepared or he wasn't sure he's going to be able or willing to walk through it fully, all right? But either way, their situation is what is hindering them. Now, one of the reasons why I had to mention this on the list is not just because it happens, but because I've seen a lot of women get caught up in these scenarios. And then let's use the example of that I just spoke about. Woman finds out 2 months in, he's living with his baby's mother. Let's go with that one, okay? He's living with his baby's mother, but they're not together. And I know that sounds like nonsense to a lot of people, but it does happen. It does exist, all right? And so they're not married. but they have a baby together. They're in the same place. And the plan is to move out of there. Well, the woman, she, as much as people may say, like even you watching this right now, like, oh, hell no, I would never do that. I wouldn't entertain it. I'd be done in a heartbeat. The reality is that once people find themselves in that situation, it doesn't always go as they would have thought it would go, meaning they end up sticking around. Okay. But part of the reason why they stick around is because they think, all right, well, no, I'm not happy. He's just now telling me this. He is saying that this, he's trying to leave. We're enjoying each other. We feel like we had this connection, whatever. So she continues. And this is where it can get crazy, right? Now, I'm not going to sit here and say it's never worked out for somebody, because that'd be a lie. There are scenarios where woman stuck around, the man followed through with what he said, left, they got together, and they were good, right? But it's very risky, okay? And so if you ever find yourself, whether that be, I've talked a lot in the past about dating a man who's separated, still married but separated, and planning a divorce. And I always advise, do not date someone who's in the process of divorce. It's not to say these people are bad people. It's not to say these people aren't actually planning to get a divorce. It's to say that I've seen scenarios where, though that was their intent, something changes. So basically, as long as they're still officially married, things can change at the drop of a dime. Not to mention, I think we should honor the union of marriage, to where it's like, all right, as long as they're still married on paper, let's not get involved in that. Let's wait till it's official. But what happens is people get invested, waiting, and God forbid, either it doesn't happen, or they decide they want to work things out with their partner, and now the woman is left heartbroken, shattered, needs healing, you name it. So I say all this to say you have to be mindful that if you come across a scenario where he is dealing with a situation, you got to try your best to take a step back and say, hey, listen, I have interests. I am willing to explore things with you once you've resolved your situation. Okay? We can't work on it in the meantime, because unfortunately, depending on what it is and what's holding him back. So let's go back to that example of the child's mother. I've seen situations where the man wants to leave, but one, he's afraid to be away from his kids, and he feels like if he leaves the woman and gets into an official new relationship, she will use that against him. She will not let him see his kids, so on and so forth. As well as other backlash from her, right? And so even though he may genuinely not want to be with her, he does not have the courage or the willingness, or does not know how to execute it, right? For whatever reason, he's dragging things on. So you just never know. You never know. But all that to say, yes, having a situation is definitely one of those reasons why he could have genuine, serious interest, but he's not pursuing yet. All right. So another big, and I think a reason that doesn't get talked about enough, why a man can be interested in you but not pursue you, is because he has other issues going on in his life. Okay? So let's start here. A lot of men, when they're dealing with a lot, tend to shut down. Okay? And I know many of you have experienced that within the relationship or within the dating process, where you're seeing a man, everything seems to be going well, but once he gets hit with too much, what he feels is too much, he just shuts down. He's not communicating the same, he's more distant. And for you, it can be very frustrating, because you're like, yo, I'm trying to be here for you, I'm trying to encourage, but it's almost like he's not letting you, he's just pulling away instead. And so the unfortunate reality is that a lot of men, for various reasons, feel like when the world is thrown at them, or when life is lifing, right, they need to just handle it themselves. And they also don't want to bring that burden onto other people, more specifically, the woman that they care about or they have genuine interest in. All right. and they don't also want to have to expose themselves. If they're struggling in certain ways and it's exposing certain weaknesses within them, that may also cause them to be like, no. So let's look at a situation where you guys aren't dating a relationship, or maybe you've talked, he's flirted, he's shown some interest, but again, it's like, why isn't he pursuing? And there's this automatic thought process that he's not serious, he's playing games and all these things. And of course, that exists. That absolutely exists. But it also exists that he's dealing with a lot right now. And again, some people don't feel comfortable sharing all that information, especially if we're just starting to get to know each other. You know what I'm saying? Or barely know each other. It's like, do I want to tell her all my business? Because what if that business is also embarrassing? Like, what if it's something with family that he's dealing with right now? Now, again, if I'm talking to the man, I'm going to tell him like, yo, if you're serious about this woman or you think you can see a future with her, I would encourage him to be transparent, be open, so that you're aware, so that there's no confusion, right? But the reality is that it does happen. Now, for you, all you can do is ask. I don't want you to run with this and say, okay, well, if you ask a man and he's not telling you, let's just assume he got too much going on. And for that reason, let's just give him more time and give him another chance. No, I'm not telling you that, right? And I'm not, and don't take any of this as me saying you have to wait around for these men or that man to get his stuff together to figure it out. I'm not saying that either. I'm just explaining why you could have a scenario where a man has genuine interest but doesn't do anything about it. So again, all you can do is ask. And if he does express it, you have to understand that what may not be a big deal to you may be a big deal to him. So I also see situations where the man does tell the woman, all right, well, this is what's going on. And this is why right now I feel like we don't need to be moving right now too fast or crossing certain lines because I need to get this stuff in order. And for the woman who already is like, this is the man she wants to be with, and you're feeling him, you really enjoy him, you feel like that should not be reason enough to not move forward. And so then what happens is, because you feel like that's not reason enough, then you go to, he's just using that as an excuse. He's not serious. He's this. And you may have friends or family telling you that. But you got to understand, everyone has a different pain threshold. Everyone has different levels of what they can handle or what impacts them in a way that will affect how they show up in a relationship or in the dating process. All right. And we just have to respect it. And again, this is similar to the man who has a situation. It's like, all right, well, if that's the case, and you feel like, I'm saying, you speaking to the man, you're saying to him, if he feels like this is too much to deal with right now, and this is hitting my spirit. I know what happens sometimes. Sometimes you'll have that man say, like, I still want you in my life as a friend. I don't want you to go anywhere. So even though I'm not ready to pursue you, please don't leave me, right, until I figure this out. And there's this sympathy that comes from the woman that, okay, well, I don't want to leave him hanging. I want to be there for him. And you end up sticking around. And this ends up being just as tricky and potentially messy as when the man has a situation. Because if you stick around out of sympathy and trying to encourage him, or even out of thinking, well, if I stay by his side, he will feel that I am the woman for him. The problem is, you're going to get, in most cases, you're going to get more emotionally invested or more attached to this man. Your feelings are going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And we don't know when this issue he's facing is going to come to an end. And we don't know if there's going to be some left turns that we didn't even see coming in it. Now, it's one thing if he can say, for example, this is a 3-month scenario. And after 3 months, it's done. Let's just say he has to take care of his mother, and they've already made plans to, and when I give you these examples, I'm pulling from real stories. He's taking care of his mother. but they already have plans for her to, let's say, move with another family member, and it's going to happen in 3 months. But it's just right now, while she's there, it's hard for him to be as fully invested in the relationship. So can you just, work with him? That's more understandable. I'm not even going to say it's 100% I will co-sign, because it depends on a lot of different factors, but that's a lot more understandable because there's a very set timeline he can give you. It can still get tricky. It can still go left, but at least he's giving you something concrete. That's very different than just some vague scenario where he's dealing with some struggle and we don't know when it comes to an end. And so you have to be honest with yourself about what you can handle. Do not stick around if you know it's gonna get you in trouble. And you're gonna be feeling deeper for someone who may still not be ready to embrace being with you. And so you have to be open and willing to express what your limit is. So even if you say, okay, well, I can handle one more month of this, but after a month, it's going to start driving you insane. You got to let that be known. Be like, all right, well, listen, I can do a month, but after this, I understand you need something, you want encouragement, but this is hurting me. This is too much for me. Now it becomes your burden, right? And that can start to create other issues in the relationship or potential relationship. So be honest, be true to yourself. Don't try to take on more than you can take on. But yes, him having other issues in his life can stop him from fully pursuing you. All right, so let's keep this going. And another big common reason why a man could be genuinely interested in you but not pursue you is he is paralyzed by a fear of rejection. Okay. Now, I know some of your first thoughts are he needs to man up. He needs to toughen up. What's wrong with him? Why is he so scared of rejection? That's ridiculous. I understand some of you feel that way. But the reality is that the more a man likes a woman, the more sensitive he becomes to the situation. The more sensitive he becomes to her willingness to accept him or not, how she talks to him, everything, right? And so when you combine genuine interest with a man who maybe has gone through rejection before, and we're going to talk more about how he needs to handle that in a second, but when you combine those things, yes, there's a lot of men who can start to be fearful of pursuing things. And then what that fear of rejection can also do is it can stir up other insecurities. So now he may start to overanalyze and think, well, maybe I'm not good enough for her, or maybe my money isn't as right as it needs to be, because there's levels to the financial position a man wants to be in. And sometimes it is dependent on how he views the woman. All right. He may view one woman in a general sense. He may view one woman as, yo, I gotta be rich if I'm gonna try to date her, right? And that may not be true, but that's how he perceives it and perceives her. Whereas he may view another woman and think, okay, well, she seems to be more into the simple things, and that may not be true. She may be presenting more simple, conservative, whatever you want to call it, but she may have high desires financially as well. Either way, the perception that he has of her can then alter what he thinks he needs to bring to the table. I don't really like that phrase, but whatever. What he needs to bring to the table in the situation. Other insecurities can kick in. This is hitting my spirit. I don't even feel right talking about it, but I can't ignore when something hits my spirit. One of the insecurities that doesn't get talked about a lot, or maybe enough, is men who feel insecure sexually. Okay. There may be men who, whether it be with what their package, so to speak, or their performance, or both, right? And these men may have had disappointing previous experiences where they were rejected because of that, right? And now again, they come across this woman that they're really into, and it gets in the way, it blocks them. Not to mention, I'll give you another angle to this. I remember one time I was approached by a man in the gym. big dude, muscles, good looking dude. He doesn't have any problem getting women. But he told me he had with this one woman that he was with, who he was really into, wanted to be with. He had this performance anxiety as far as like he couldn't even bring himself to try to sleep with her. Okay. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, that's a great thing in the sense of, all right, he's not rushing to bed. No, but no, it was deeper than that. Like he really did not know how to get over this hump of sleeping with her, period. And I think when they've tried, he couldn't get it up. No, not even I think. I know he told me when they tried, he couldn't get it. And he said with other women, it was never, it's not a problem. Okay, easy. He's, he said he's good in that department. But when it comes to a woman that he's actually into, because this wasn't the first time he experienced this, but from what he expressed to me, it was even more intensified in this situation. He's struggling. Now, there's different levels to how much a man will struggle with that, but it does happen. Okay, so it wasn't that he was insecure. It wasn't that he was insecure about his package or performance, but actually, I might be misspeaking there. I think there was some level of something in him was created. Well, not something in him. His desire for this woman was so strong, it was bringing up some deeper insecurity that wasn't there with other women. Because when a man doesn't have real feelings, he doesn't care, right? He's just going to have his fun and do his thing. But when he actually cares, he can get in his head and it can throw a lot of things off. So with him, even though he was dating her, his ability to push things to another level was paralyzed. Okay, so there's a lot of different examples, but contrary to what some of y'all might believe, it does exist where some men are literally paralyzed by their fear, and they have some deeper issues that need to be addressed, and we're going to talk about that next. All right, so the next thing on this list, it's attached to what we were just talking about. Another reason why a man will not pursue you, even though he's interested, is that he needs to heal. Okay, so we discussed that paralyzing fear that some men have of rejection, and the deeper insecurities that come out when they are faced with a woman they're genuinely into and genuinely want to be with. Okay, and all of that stems from a lot of unresolved traumas, hurts, disappointments, you name it. Unfortunately, a lot of men have not taken time to heal, don't even know how to, right? And though I believe in therapy and things of that nature, coaching and everything, I understand that there's a lot of people that have a negative perception of it or feel like it doesn't work, it's pointless. And it's because, unfortunately, listen, therapy and coaching is great, but you still have to find the right therapist or coach. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who aren't good at what they do or just wasn't the right fit for that person. And it leads to a lack of results, which then leads to skepticism about it in general. But I want to encourage everyone that no, it is good for you. It is necessary. Everyone needs to do it. Even if you think you're fine and okay and there's no issues on your end, nothing that you're holding on to, get a checkup. It's an emotional checkup. The same way we would tell someone to go get a checkup from the doctor physically to see there's anything maybe they're not aware of. It's good to do it emotionally because there might be things you're just not aware of. But going back to these men, that's a huge, huge sticking point. And here's the thing. If you come across this and you sense the man needs to heal, I'm letting you know right now, simply telling him you need to heal, you need to go to therapy. Not that it's never worked, but no one likes to get singled out. So people can get defensive because you're making it seem like they have a problem and it's just them. If you want to encourage someone, one, do it for yourself. So if you've done it already, talk about how you've gone through that experience. Talk about the steps that you took, how you've grown. That will help them feel much more comfortable. And we're talking about it, like, again, let's say there's a man there's genuine interest and you feel like there's a future, there could be a potential future here. So he's worth this encouragement. And I think it's worth encouraging anyone to do it, to be honest with you, whether you see a future with them or not, because it'd be good for them and it's something that they can pass along to other people. But sharing your experience with them can be very inspiring and encouraging. And again, doesn't make them feel as singled out because you did it for yourself. Now, if you've never done it, okay, and you're trying to get them to do it, and this is someone that you feel like you can potentially have a future with, then I do think saying, hey, why don't we go to the, and when I say why don't we go, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be you and him in some kind of couples like session. It's how about we both go to our own respective therapist coaches, but we're on this journey together in the sense of we can share what we're learning together, talk about our sessions together, things of that nature, right? And encourage each other in that way. But it's not that we're doing them together at in the same session. Now, one quick thing I want to mention, because I was approached by this guy recently who's in a relationship and they're having some issues. He admitted that he's made some mistakes. And I told him, like, listen, y'all need to do some counseling. You need to go to a therapist or coach. And he had said he spoke to his father, and his father was like, nah, that's for married folks. And I just want everybody to understand, no, it's not just for married folks. Like, I don't care if you're in the dating phase. I don't care if you're in an official relationship. Whatever dynamic you're in, if you see a potential future with somebody, then it's like you don't need to wait till you're actually married to do these things. Do it now because it will help you with discovering or seeing more clearly if this is a person you can share your life with. And it will lay the foundation for you to be able to have a successful, healthy relationship with them. There's no need to wait for marriage. And what happens to a lot of people is they kick the can down the road. They kind of look past certain issues. They might get married. And now that they're married, well, life is hitting and they don't got time for this. And by that time, more issues have piled up. So when they finally go to one, it's a lot more work to do. You see where I'm going with this? It's like, let's not wait that long. All right? Handle your business. But yes, him needing to heal can be a huge reason why he hasn't pursued you, even though he's interested. All right, we got a couple more to go, and I'm going to try to make these quick. But another reason why a man can be interested and not pursue you is simply he thinks you're not available. Okay? So I will say this. You ever heard, some of you may have experienced this, where someone meets you in the street and you guys get in conversation and somehow it comes up where they thought you were married. And you're like, why do you think I was married? And they're like, no, you just look like you're married, right? And some of y'all give off an energy like you're already taken. Now, sometimes that can just be in how you present yourself, maybe your level of sophistication, and just something about your aura just says wife. But then also, you got to consider that sometimes y'all have walls up, and that wall is saying, I'm not available. And somehow a man is picking up on that where it's coming across like, oh, she ain't one to be trying to talk to. So you do have to be mindful. I'm not trying to make it your fault, but I have to make you aware that having walls up and coming across a certain kind of way can create a miscommunication of your availability. And from there, those guys won't approach. But it's hitting my spirit again, so I feel the need to mention this. But you know who will still approach you? Men who have no interest in being serious and married men. Now, I know some of y'all are like, wait, what? Hear me out. And of course, we're talking about there are a segment of married men who still choose to step out and do their thing on the side, right? And I've said many times before, whether you realize it or not, coming across with that wall up or coming across emotionally unavailable can make you a prime candidate for a man's side chick. Because when you come off so emotionally detached or unavailable, the assumption is she won't get in her feelings. She'll play her role. Like she's not someone I'm gonna have to worry about making things difficult. And so that in this weird way can draw men who are in relationships to you while pushing away men who are single who actually want something serious, because to them, they view your don't bother me energy or I'm not available energy as I don't want to disrespect. I don't want to, overstep bounds. Let me just give her space and she can do her thing. So it's crazy, but it happens like that. So bottom line is, yes, you coming across like you're unavailable or him thinking you're in a relationship for various other reasons can stop him from pursuing you even though he's interested. All right, and last but not least, this doesn't apply to everybody, of course. I'm not even going to say it applies to the majority. It's probably a minority, but I'm still going to mention it. And another reason why a man can be interested but not pursue you is because he's waiting on God. And when I say he's waiting on God, meaning he's waiting to get the green light from God, or, he's waiting on God to tell him how to move in the situation. Because sometimes a man who is spiritual, who is spiritually connected, he understands that what he wants may not be what is best right now. He understands that there's a process that God may want to take you or you and him through before he can pursue anything, okay? And so he may be waiting on God. Now, let's not assume that with any man who is hesitant. This is one of those things where if you think that might be the case, feel free to ask that question, right? And I do believe that a man who is waiting for that reason will be able to communicate in some way, shape, or form that, yes, this is a spiritually led decision to not pursue right now, okay? Not that he's and he'll be able to say, yeah, I have interest, but right now is not the time, okay? But don't just assume, again, because I think some people already might be thinking a situation they're dealing with, this is what it is. And it's like, nah, get that clarification straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. But it does happen. It can happen. And you got to respect it at the end of the day, because, and if you need help respecting it, then you got to talk to God yourself too. Like if he's giving you that reason, all right, if he's saying God is telling me it's not time yet, or God is telling me, I need to handle some things first, before you would start to assume he's making excuses or misinterpreting whatever, all right, well then you go in prayer and you ask God what it is. And if God says, nah, that's what I told him, it's legit. It's like, all right, cool. They respect it. And then ask God, what do you need to be doing in the meantime? Because if there's a process he's taking him through, there's a process he wants to take you through. And you want to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do so that you can receive what is truly best for you in the long run. Thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on how to know if a man really wants you. So believe it or not, I think one of the unfortunate realities in dating is that men and women have lost the art of flirting, all right? A lot of people